Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. You are watching Hypnosis Hero, the only show that we know of that interviews the world's greatest hypnotists. No lie, truly the world's greatest hypnotists. And then they do hypnosis live through the screen. That's right. You get to experience hypnosis from the world's greatest hypnotists. And tonight is no exception. This guy's been around for decades doing hypnosis. And so we're really thrilled to talk to Scott McFall tonight. But before we do that, let me give you a breakdown of what's going to happen. First of all, I'm going to bring on my good friend Brian Bay. He's going to try to talk about politics, but I'm going to steer him away from politics. And then we're going to bring on Shawn Kostiuk. He's going to give us a tech tip. Then we're going to bring on Scott. Then Scott's going to tell us some great stories about the olden days, maybe, because he's been doing this for a long time. We're also going to catch up on some other stuff he's doing. And he's going to be at the Performing Hypnosis Summit. He's teaching a course, a class, and a workshop. And then we're going to do, we are going to play friend or frenemy. We're going to find out if Scott McFall is a friend or frenemy. So place your bets now, everybody. And then, of course, we will do the hypnosis. Becca Rose, good to see you. And, of course, let's do a little quick pitch. Grab the book, everybody. Go get this book. It's Jim Kellner, hypnotist.com/author. Change your life. Have a laugh at the same time. And with that, speaking of having a laugh at the same time, let's bring on Brian Bay, everyone. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Hey, good evening, Jim. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic. How are you doing today?
Oh, man. I'm hanging in there. It's been the Nile is done with the haunted house. We wrapped Saturday night, and I did absolutely nothing yesterday.
Nice. So a little bit of free time in your future.
We go right into depositions, and then I hope, fingers crossed, we can settle a case and not do a 2-week trial at the beginning of December. I'm like, do not want to just get frazzled out and fried right before the holidays. But yeah, I think, Jim, we would be remiss not to go political, but more of the animal rights.
The animal rights.
Rest in peace.
Oh, that's right. There's a squirrel that passed away. Is that what you're talking about? Uh-oh. One of us froze.
Oh, am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. I'm surprised you didn't hear about Peanut the squirrel.
I did, but
his raccoon friend.
I didn't catch the whole story. I've been on the road this past weekend. I was up in Canada doing some stuff.
Yeah, so very, very clear, concise version. Guy finds a squirrel messed up, rehabs the squirrel. Months later, tries to release him back into nature.
Yeah.
And something gets in a fight with him. He loses half his tail and says, "Yo, homie, you're my human. I want to come back home." So he starts an Instagram page, and everybody loves Peanut the squirrel.
Yeah.
Well, he gets a following, and then there's monetization and things like that. So they start Peanut's Freedom Farm, an animal rescue.
Oh, nice.
And so because he did not have the official permits for wildlife, somebody complained, and they served a search warrant. They raided his house and took the squirrel, the raccoon, to test for rabies and euthanize them both. And the internet has not disappointed. People say, "Oh my, well, that squirrel was in that house illegally," and the response has been, "Well, so are a third of the people in New York." But
oh my God.
So
apparently, this happened in New York?
New York State. I don't know the specific city or whatever, but if you look up Peanut the squirrel, Sky News Australia is covering this. So it's
isn't it great that they've handled all of the burglaries and all of the murders and everything else in New York, so they could focus on the important work of taking down
Peanut
squirrel.
the squirrel was more closely investigated than anybody on Epstein's guest list.
It's tragic and funny at the same time. What a
absolute clown show. So everybody,
yeah,
get out, vote. Election day is tomorrow.
Yes.
And I hope that everybody remembers that tomorrow is trash day and not recycling. So Wednesday we'll find out if Civil War 2.0 begins. I hope it does not.
Look how Brian sneaks in his political views.
And just like that, we got demonetized.
Quickly, we got to say hi to Becca. Becca, he's going to talk about politics, but I'm going to try to steer him away from politics. Not so true. Oh, she's quoting.
No, she's quoting you. And,
yeah. I think I heard a bit about Peanut the Squirrel. Yeah.
Worldwide news. It's absolutely absurd that it almost bears, sharing. And so hopefully tonight we can dedicate the show to Peanut and the show Peanut's Freedom Farm a little bit of love.
Absolutely. Send some money, everybody. Shawn, if you want to track down an address for that, post it in the comments. That'd be awesome. Hi, Paulette. It's funny. I wondered why we didn't domesticate squirrels and start to keep them as pets. Apparently they did back in I looked it up. It was like in the early 1900s. You could, people had them, and then finally they weren't making great pets. And so the government started outlawing them. So,
and that was kind of his whole thing, is he's like, these normally are not pets. Like, do not go out and try to rescue something like this. Is happened completely by mistake and everything else. So,
yeah.
And just like that, Shawn puts my Facebook page up there. So I'm like going to get a bunch of hate.
Speaking of Shawn, let's bring him up from the basement. He's getting lonely down there. Shawn Kostiuk, I visited your home country. I saw lots of poppies up there. You want to tell the audience what that's all about?
First, we got to unfreeze him.
Significance. Why am I frozen?
Now you're back.
Do I look frozen?
All right. It's more of a slow motion.
Carry on.
Things move a lot slower in Canada. So, so the significance of the poppy, World War One.
Yeah. All right.
Now, let's try this again.
No, we're gonna. I was about to say, I'm like, and Shawn's frozen.
We're just gonna move forward. We're not even gonna worry about people freezing. Shawn, if you're able to.
Right.
It was from World War One, celebrating the veterans from World War One. What a nice thing to do.
Yep.
And Shawn, do you have a tech tip for us this week?
I do. Batteries, they run out if you don't plug them in.
Mm-hmm.
So I was on my way. I was in the middle of nowhere, Saskatchewan, and all of a sudden I could hear this voice saying low battery. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, my car's not advanced enough to have a voice.
Okay.
So this must be something else. And I found out that the Bluetooth receiver that I had plugged in wasn't plugged. You start charge your batteries, make sure they're plugged in.
Okay. We caught about half that. That's all right, though. We're plowing for it. We seem to be having some technical issues somewhere. The internet's being naughty. So let's bring on our guest and hope that it clears up.
Elon Musk, help our captain. Starlink to Canada.
So before we do that, we've got a couple of shout outs. Scott King, he's also commenting politics, kids these days. Carol and Jay, very nice to see you folks. And you're probably frozen. I'm close enough. I can escape to the Great Northwest if I have to, into Canada if I have to. All right. Here we go. So our guest hero tonight, everybody. He's been as I say, he's been doing hypnosis for decades. He started, I'm guessing, as a small child. He's done and he does it all too. He does he does stage, he does hypnotherapy, he does training, he does magic, mentalism. He runs his own conference down in San Diego. So we've got a lot to talk about with this guy. So everybody give it up for Mr. Scott McFall. Hello, Scott.
Hi, how are you, gentlemen?
We are so good. And he's also got a great haircut, like three of us do tonight. That's right. Feeling left out, Brian?
You'll get there,
Oh,
man.
there's a. Oh, do we have a Confucius moment?
What?
These people.
All
need
right.
to-
Anybody under the age of 18, close your ears. So
No,
Confucius say it's a play on it's a pun, Jim. It's a pun. It's
Don't
clean.
you get my
Okay.
TikTok
Okay.
banned, man?
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Confucius say men who lose hair get more head.
It's not true. Lie.
Tell me you're married without telling me you're married.
Brian, always keeping it classy. Thanks so much. Scott,
Yes, Jim.
please rescue us. Rescue us.
No, this is really a nice car accident to watch.
You just can't. Scott's on there just being like, jazz hands isn't going to fix this.
Yeah. I'll tell you. No, it's really great to be here, and I really love the way that you guys are doing your thing. It's like watching the banter between Doc Severinsen and Carson on a night he was bombing in his monologue. It's very nice. It's very nice. I like it.
Wait, which one of us was bombing?
It was just one. Okay, good. So that's good. So
Keep the illusion going that
that's right.
somebody was not bombing.
That's
Yeah.
right. Well, you all look fabulous. I'm really glad to be here, and I'm really excited about being at the conference with you in Vegas. Very excited.
Absolutely. Yeah. Scott, what did you so he's talking about the Performing Hypnosis Summit. If you guys if you haven't signed up for that and you have any kind of interest in it, come see it. You know, Scott, you were one of the people that jumped right on board right away. You said, Jim, I want to do the end note for that the first year. We're like, yes. And you've been presenter ever since. And then when we opened up workshops this year, you made what is, people throw this term around, incredible offer, but really this 4 days for $500.
Right.
It's unbelievable. So
Right.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, I have a very strong belief in the legacy of Ormond. You know, Ormond McGill wrote the foreword to my manual. And of course he was at my shows, supporting me and hanging out with, all the old time folks, and the beauty of it was accessibility was key, real, amazing, training and embedding of what keeps everybody safe and not sued, for example, and keeps us legal, which is a much bigger problem in the stage hypnosis and clinical hypnosis industry than one might think.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the time, I'm sorry to tell you, gentlemen, I know this is going to come as a shock to you, but having control of a whole room of people, whether you're a musician or you're a stage hypnotist, it attracts a certain person who wants a lot of admiration. And often they are a little bit less than aware of the safety of the participants or the audience for that matter. So great training equals staying legal, staying fun, staying powerful, and also keeping hypnosis as a consulting hypnosis person legal rather than creating extremely bad state attorneys general attention and so on. So the beginning trainings, like the 4 days that I do, are there for legal safety. Not that I'm an attorney, I certainly am not, but we work very diligently to give the foundation that creates excellent entertainment. I was originally a theater major before I switched to human behavior. And so we work on excellent, amazing entertainment, but also make it solid as a rock, where it's limiting the amount of liability and trouble.
Because the worst room you can be in is a courtroom, especially as a defendant.
Yeah, well, my dad used to say, if you need a lawyer, you already lost.
Yeah.
So, the thing is, it's super important to recognize the legacy of all these amazing people in our business and how we've gotten a little further away and a little further away and a little further away from where they used to be. So the foundational training, like the 4-day that I'm doing pre and post your conference, includes everything from NLP platform skills to how safety is achieved so that it's very unlikely that someone's going to fall off a stage or slip between chairs. And it's, 40 years of performance experience of what can go wrong. So it's not just the hypnosis, stage hypnosis, platform skills, theatrics, the way that your sound system and lighting, every kind of thing that should be done. But it's also just straight up, how do we empathize with this person who's having this experience and have them leave happier than when they got there?
Mm.
And that is its own art form.
I like that. Empathize with them instead of just making them look like a jackass, right?
Never. Yeah. If your participant doesn't leave happier than when they came on stage,
Yeah.
you're in a ticking time bomb situation that you haven't faced yet. And the reality is that is not rare in our industry. And of course, I work pretty diligently to solve that problem.
Scott, you're hitting the mark there too, because we had, we've talked with, I've talked with Dale Whittick from the insurance company, the Peep, and there's a whole lot of companies out there that just aren't insuring stage hypnosis anymore. In the UK, they're having a really tough time
because there were incompetent people performing with high risk stupidity. And the thing is, that's because of bad training and bad accountability. And some of them, and I hate to say this, but fame does not equal smart.
Yeah.
Fame generally will put a gigantic target on your back.
Well, it's not just that. It's absolute power corrupts absolutely. So it's also the most likely place where people get sloppy. So it's a double-edged sword. You're highly visible, you have money, you are a target, and your hubris will get you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'll gently push back a little bit on kind of the lawyer thing that you said earlier. Is if you're finding where you need a lawyer to defend yourself, I would probably say closer that like you're behind the 8 ball. You haven't lost, but you need to move quickly. But I think more important, under the ounce of prevention is a pound of cure.
That's
Make
right.
the investment in yourself to find somebody who specializes in contracts, liability, and minimize your risk exposure, and pretty much go in and talk to somebody and go, here's my show, here's my act, here are all the different things. Let's reverse war game this. Kind of red team yourself, going, what are all the things that I could get in trouble with?
Yeah, let's start even earlier than that. Let's not be a jackass. And so the thing is that like, sure, what you're saying is great, but let's start by really looking at and understanding what the real risks are in the first place that we need to take accountability for. And, sure, there's a reason why I used a lawyer to get a legal opinion on using testimonials state to state. I wanted to solve it beforehand, just like you're saying, an ounce of prevention. But what we have to face is how many truly incompetent, risk-taking lunatics are in entertainment. And what we have to ask ourselves is what happens to our profession if we can't get insurance.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, I mean, it has become so easy today to learn stage hypnosis, comedy hypnosis, because you can watch YouTube and you think you watch a video. Because Grant and I talked to somebody on Hypno News who was a volunteer. Someone did the handshake induction, not realizing that the real jerk part is just part of the show. It's not a real jerk, and damn near dislocated a volunteer's shoulder. And
anyone doing vagal nerve pressure inductions in the modern world is not really being smart, and is demonstrating a behavior that people will copy in their house. So it is ludicrously irresponsible, like shockingly irresponsible, and it's something we were teaching against from the 80s on. And so when I watch that, I'm just like, who came up with this incompetent stupidity? And it's mind-blowing to me. And nobody was doing any of that. And hypnosis shows were the most popular campus entertainment. They were filling every club. They were winning every time, NACA's most busy stuff every year. And yet nobody was doing that. It's certainly unnecessary. And the thing is that we forget that lots of people in that audience go home and play with what they saw.
Sure. Yeah.
So there's such staggering stupidity, and we have to recognize how to show and model what we want to have happen for powerful entertainment. And see, there's 50% of our profession doesn't even realize it's real. A huge number of those people have never had a catharsis or ab reaction on stage. They have no idea. and then, show 180 when somebody is, losing it in front of 1,000 people because they weren't trained right. They don't know what to do about it. They don't understand neurotic tick. And you can do 1,000 shows and get lucky. You can get lucky and have no problem.
Sure. Yeah.
But the thing is that incompetent training leads to no insurance.
Yeah. And then
no insurance leads to no state fairs, no colleges, many corporate gigs that won't hire you. So it's a domino effect that we need to prevent.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Agreed. And, so, things like this, it's incredibly affordable. Again, it's literally $500 for all 4 days. So you can come to the summit, you can learn, you can go from zero to hero. Again, $500, guys, that's so inexpensive. So, Shawn, when you get a chance, will you find the link to, it's on if you go to performinghypnosissummit.com, you'll find Scott's workshop link there. And you've already got several people signed up. I know it's it's going to be very popular. So you do want to sign up for the stage hips out there that want to, and this isn't just for beginners. You're saying words that I have no idea what you're talking about. I've been doing this for 15 years, so
I'll jump in real quick. I don't think that it's an inexpensive cost. I think it is an incredible value for money.
Yes.
And I think it's a very wise investment to make in yourself.
One of the other workshops I'm doing there, thanks for that comment. One of the other workshops that I'm doing there is about how to make money in this business.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most important things to remember is give first, give most, give often. But the reason that people become lifelong clients is reciprocity debt. And so a lot of people in this business are not understanding the layers of a relationship with their customers, with their students, and how credibility is established. It's a lot like, how do you get a following on the internet? You certainly don't do it by charging a lot in advance.
Yeah.
And that works the same in real life, does it not?
It's true. Yeah.
So, there are people that will be in San Diego at the workshop that have been in my professional coaching for 30 years, and there's a reason why I'm coaching for internet marketing companies that deal with hundreds and hundreds of orthodontists or chiropractors or hypnotists, and a hypnotist learning how to get $15,000 a quarter in consulting, in marketing from a company that's getting $60,000 a year per company, 10 companies are going to give him more than most performers make all year.
Right.
So if somebody doesn't understand what the layers of income streams are in the business, it's catastrophic to them.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're meeting all these people and then losing them. They're meeting all these people and then they're disappearing, or they're just selling them an audio program.
Yeah.
Well, it's very hard in the modern world to pay the prices of today with selling an audio program.
Right. Exactly. And, it's one of the great things about our profession is that there are so many ways to serve and to get paid for that in different ways. There's just so many opportunities out there.
That's right. There are. And, you're doing a great job. And I like what you folks have done with the events that you've put on, the digital events that you've had, the pioneering foresight to shove through the technology and go through the hassle and spend the time and the money and the effort. And it's a lot. And when you start, it's a lot for a little.
True.
And I'm really impressed with how much you have worked at that. I'm really impressed with how you deal with everybody's egos, and how you tolerate all that is going on to get all these people. You're herding cats because they're all entertainers, and we all think we're the king of the hill on some level, a little bit. So you're herding cats, and you've done a great job of it. And so there's a couple of little tips I'll give people as long as I'm here. One of them is, for hypnotists, this is incredibly great as a book. Conjure Psychological Secrets by Sharp, by C.H. Sharp. This book has amazing perceptual stuff in it, magical stuff for how you get an individual's perception and cognition to be a little bit off balance, which can actually help in inductions in amazing ways. And it's a very fascinating book. I highly recommend it for hypnotists. Conjurer's Psychological Secrets by C.H. Sharp. Amazing concepts for how people are perceiving and how various illusions of cognition and perception happen to function. It's a brilliant book. And I would love to have all of us have the passion, for really understanding that we're giving people a magical thing, regardless of how funny it is.
Mhm.
They get to go home going, wow, I may not be perceiving the world as it is, and maybe I could get more externally aware, or I could do a better job of checking whether I'm right or wrong. And there's so many magical things happening,
Yes. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead, Brian.
I'll say I'll pop in here. Becca was asking what made you start hypnosis, or how did that pique your interest? And before you answer that, we've got a TikTok. Casey on TikTok says that some sessions are $500 a day, and that your course is a screaming deal. So
Screaming deal. Yes.
back
It's a
to
screaming
Becca.
yes, baby. It's a screaming yes. That's right. Quote Susan Powder, who floated around the speaker business. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Screaming yes, baby. So, I got into this business as a child. My father was a student of Harry Aaron's. My grandmother was as well. My grandfather and my father were students of Thurman Fleet, who was the inventor of concept therapy and conceptology, which predates NLP by, many decades. But, Dr. Daniel Burrow wrote a book about learning all these things, A Bigger Picture by Dr. Daniel Burrow on having relationships with myself in training. Another great book for you to pick up off Amazon, A Bigger Picture, Daniel Burrow. But he covers kind of how I got into this sort of thing, or what he learned when he was training with me. And he's a licensed psychologist who's currently the president of Master Hypnotist Society that I founded. And Dan had quite a journey. His father was killed on the farm when he was a very young man, and came through a journey becoming a licensed psychologist, and then became a hypnotist. We all have a journey. Mine was at the Mayo Clinic having a heart surgery, where I was taught by nurses to distract myself using self-hypnosis during the pain management of the surgeries that I had, for example. And magic and hypnosis were the distraction. And then later on, of course, I gravitated toward it because my family was very into alternative medicine and whatnot. And so it became a lifelong passion. And the theater, loving to pretend to be someone else when you're in pain. Of course, you want to act like somebody else, like every other person in the theater. It was just fun to be somebody else, Mm-hmm. And, it was a wonderful excuse to not do your homework, and hang out with other people and dink around, and pretend you're older.
Mm-hmm.
So the hypnosis and the theater helps a lot when you understand the idea of emulating or modeling, or how to make a show hilarious. And even now, with so many people saying the stuff I used to put in my ads, the last time I did a seminar in Vegas, there were 150 people at the last stage hypnosis seminar I did there.
Wow.
And over 80 of them bought the private consulting. So I was really quite busy. But the last time I did a clinical myself, 280 people bought the consulting.
Wow.
So it gets to be quite a busy life. And what I would say is, theater makes you know how to emulate other people so you can speed learn better than NLP. Method acting is a wonderful way to learn emulation, is it not?
Yeah.
So you fall in love with the whole business because you get to pretend to be somebody else. And then you do it so long you become somebody else,
Pretty cool how that works out.
Yeah.
That was one of the greatest things that I learned. Just doing acting was, I would find that I could, because I had zero confidence in my personal life, but then I could go and play a very confident person, and then it dawned on me, why can't I pretend? Why can't I act like I'm very confident in my real life? And
Very
my
good.
whole life changed because of it. It was like,
Exactly.
wow,
That's right.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's the essence of modeling from NLP, accessing a resource state and then applying it to a different context. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So if you're out there, I mean, really, that's, when I'm working with clients, I mean, that's one of my go-tos. I will tell them, what can we, do you know somebody? Could you imagine being somebody that could, be a successful non-smoker, that could, whatever it is, that could get up and go to the gym in the morning And man, if you just play that role well enough, your whole life, it really will. It will just transform. And pretty soon you're just somebody you don't even recognize. It's truly, truly amazing. Thanks for bringing that one up, Scott. I appreciate it. Now, something I just want to, let me touch on this with you. Something I found, because I desperately wanted to be anyone but myself. And that's why I wanted to be an actor.
Mhm.
And I found when I got in there, not everybody had that same thing. At least it didn't seem like it. They had this love of the craft. And I was like, I just want to pretend to be somebody else. That's all. Because I
Mhm.
didn't like myself. I want to be somebody else. Interestingly, though, as I started doing more like stage hypnosis, speaking, things like this, there was this one day, I remember it was like, I thought, I would rather do my own words than somebody else's now. And it was
Mhm.
a really weird click for me. Have you experienced anything like that?
Yes, I have. And Russ Yarnell, who was a very tough guy to train with, who is a marketing expert in this business, you know, uh, he was a big believer in, and I've taken this into my team as well, yours, mine, and others.
Hmm.
And I force all of our trainers to live by this. I won't let them get in their ego. I won't let them only sell their books. I won't let them just put old wine in a new bottle in their books. So
Mhm.
what we cause is they have to sell the reference material they're wanting to reference in their clinics
Mm.
and have those books on hand, or have the Amazon links to them. They have to do yours, mine, and others. So they have to be
Huh.
able to be externally aware and give
Yeah.
credit, internally aware and use their own words, yours, mine, and others, and then tolerate not being in triggers with their trainers so that they're not thinking that they have to go into transference or resent their mom or dad or have sibling
Mm.
rivalry. So we're looking for this maturity, yours, mine, and others,
Mhm.
which is also an advertising idea to gain credibility that you're using evidence from yours, mine, and others to make your point. But it's what you're saying is very powerful in the sense that you are willing to take the risk in the first person. You're
Mm.
willing to go, yeah, I'm willing to take the risk to stand on the courage of my convictions. I'm going to stand on my observation. I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to be vulnerable enough to throw my own hat in the ring. I don't have to have it be somebody else. I don't have to pretend to be somebody else. And that's a certain kind of courage, a certain kind of willingness to be vulnerable, you know. And so your acting and your hypnosis took you from point A to point B to point C, right? I like starting with the outcome. I like starting with the outcome when we're with students, you know. Yours, mine, and others. Can you do all the positions? Kind of like can you go from dependent to independent and then
Mhm.
realize independent is not the destination.
Mm.
Intra-dependent, where you can
Ooh,
work
great.
within a team without losing your ego or losing your mind. Intra-dependent is the final stage of maturity, not independent, you know?
That's great. And it's funny you say that, because I was just talking with, I don't know who I was talking. I was just talking to, I was talking to Tom Silver about this just a couple days ago. That the more when I had this dream, I wanted to be the world's greatest hypnotist, right? Like maybe many of us when we start off, and maybe even along the journey, and then at some point when I realized when I started building up other hypnotists, it felt a lot better. It was a lot more comfortable for me. So now, yes, when I can go, hey, I've got this book right here by, Victoria Gallagher, or I've got Richard Nongard's book here.
Yep,
This
there you
is a
go.
great resource.
Others,
Um,
others, others. Yep.
and when I can say, Scott McFall, man, you got to go take his workshop.
Mhm.
It was such an elevating experience for me,
That's
and
right.
I didn't feel that scarcity anymore. I'm not fighting over gigs. I'm like, yeah, you know what, Salis Jawan, he's an awesome hypnotist. He'd be great for this show. I'd be great for this show. Whatever. It just doesn't matter anymore.
Mhm. Yeah, what's really cool about it is, magicians have a culture around Jeff McBride's place.
Hmm.
Jeff McBride owns the Magic Mystery School in Vegas, and
Yeah.
at some point, he's somebody you should really have speak at your conference.
Okay.
But he's a top dollar, amazing human being. But Jeff has a culture of the shared education of entertainers, around magic and meaning and mentalism and magic and medicine and medical doctors and every kind of thing you can imagine. And his school is wildly successful.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons for that culture is it's a mature culture with people who are sharing and edifying one another in a magical way. It's much bigger than whether or not they can do effects. It's like a maturing, beautiful culture that causes people to go higher and higher and higher. When I first came into the hypnosis industry, I came into it doing a values alignment where I was coming in where there were advertising illegalities going on in multiple states and people advertising percentages of success, causing so many very rough things. And so I came in drawing lines in the sand, kind of doing an Alamo metaphor, where I take a point, I'd draw a line in the sand, and I'd fight for a point. And the whole thing was ego down in effort to try to get people to stop just boldly doing things that were going to get the profession in trouble. Now, when people are doing a lot of great things, there's only a small group of people that need that values aligning. But when I started out, it was more like in your face, because it was a news story every week, you know.
Yeah.
And now that's changed. But you know, it's that culture of hypnotists coming together, especially stage hypnotists, and supporting each other. You know, the fact that that's happening and that you're doing it, it's a miracle. I mean, it's nothing short of a miracle.
It kind of feels that way. And in fact, when we, you know, it's funny, that first year we talked about, you know, how are we going to handle this? You know, especially like on the Legends roundtable, you know, these guys, you know, like some of these people haven't talked in years. They don't like each other maybe, or all this stuff. And then everyone was so cordial to each other, you know. It was such a wonderful experience. And if you're out there, if you didn't see it, I'm sorry, you missed something really cool, because you know, you got these guys that have been in the business for 50 years, 40 years talking about, oh, the last time I saw you, you know, we had a great chat and that kind of a thing. And it's interesting because, you know, like you talked about the magic. There's magic clubs all over the country where guys get together, or I mean, people get together and they share. And that just doesn't happen that often in the hypnosis world.
Well, Mesmer wasn't exactly a team player. You know, I think that in clinical, in the Andre Weisenhofer book, General Techniques of Hypnotism, you know, one of the factors of effective hypnosis is the prestige of the hypnotist. You know, and I think that maybe we take it a little far with regard to the rivalry between people. There in the 80s, I remember I was performing in North Dakota, and one of the cities that a lot of hypnotists fought over was Minot, because the Air Force Base was there. The bars would be packed. The pay was crazy high. And I won't use the name of the person, but we were playing in opposite clubs, literally on two marquees across a hotel parking lot from each other. You know, and I'd go out and my car's tires would be slashed. You know, I'd go back into the hotel, and I would go get new tires, and the next day my tires would be slashed. You know?
Oh gosh!
And it's like I had to learn, you know, put your car at the airport. But it's like, and really, truly, the rages that would happen. You know, and it was literally like old magic rivalries where somebody is standing up in the middle of the audience of someone else's show. No, I'm the greatest in the world. It's like a boxing match.
Yeah. You know, I think
the people who do that seem to forget that he who has the microphone will absolutely destroy you.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why I like to have the power cord. So, but it's so interesting. Do you remember that in Professor Leonardis's book, you remember the story of that? What they would do is send a frontman in, and all misconceptions about hypnosis in the United States were planted by the paradox advertising of creating a controversy. So they'd send a frontman in, and he'd go to one of the restaurants and explain, oh my gosh, the scandalous things the hypnotist did in the other town, it's horrible. And oh my God, it's awful. And they'd create this big buzz about how terrible it was. And they'd go to the opposite restaurant and say, he cured all these people. It was amazing. It's a healing art. And they'd get them fighting.
Second coming of Jesus. It's
yeah. So they'd get picketed. And the entire point was they'd be full every night if they were picketed. They'd be full every night. And so when we talk about we've got to dispel the myths and misconceptions, you know, we are the ones who cause them. It's the entire point of how a compulsion is formed by pain and pleasure associated with the same thing.
This explains the Kardashians so well.
Yeah, well, it explains politics. It explains, you know, Saul Alinsky. It explains a lot of things. But the thing that's so powerful about it is it also makes, if you understand all of it, you understand how to consult for companies in management, hiring, marketing. You know, when you watch the show The Mentalist and he's helping people investigate crime, it may be slightly fictional. But as a great hypnotist who's watched people for decades or even 5-10 years, you just know things other people don't know. And it becomes
Interesting.
very valuable.
Absolutely.
So Becca has another wonderful question. And she says she finds psychology very interesting, and she doesn't know how to actually start getting into hypnosis, and then even more, how to go about, starting to hypnotize people or trying to do that.
Becca, when people would come to the hypnosis schools in the early years, it's funny because you could train them for a long time and they'd still actually be a little stressed about their first hypnotizing people. So we actually had something called the client support team. And the students did not know that they were actually in on what was happening. So the student would come in, and the first day I would hand them a script before they had any training. And I'd say, Joni in room 1, it needs to quit smoking. Go in there and hypnotize her, and then help her with what's on this sheet of paper. Just follow what's on there. And I'd throw them in with no training, and they'd come out protesting, I can't do that. I'm not qualified. It's terrible. and the reason I would do this is they were equally scared 6 weeks later after training, maybe more scared, because the way our training works is quite thorough. Okay. And so the thing is, you're stressed about the layers. And what you need to realize is, as Russ Yarnell said, a good con man with no training whatsoever can get the job done. What we want is conscience and the skills. But remember, there are plenty of people who have these skills with no conscience, sadly. And so, but we'd have to break the ice where we stop having stage fright and we stop worrying about scrutiny. And basically, we need to remember that hypnosis happens anytime you watch an old-time movie. As the frequency of the flicker of the film goes by and you get sucked into the plot and the rest of the world drifts away, you're in monoideism because your emotions and your body are tracking the suggestion of the plot of the film. So, one of the ways I would suggest that you begin to understand this is going to a training is best. Most of the trainings don't give you time to practice. That's why that stage hypnosis training is 4 days long and has chances for support later, is because I break them out and they have to do it in front of me a lot. Good. Yeah. And so the thing is, a training is wonderful. There are people with enough understanding that it's not impossible to learn from a book, but I'm a big believer in a play needs a director. A play needs a director. A movie needs a director. And any hypnotist without outside feedback is skipping one of the coolest things you can have, which is a mirror back at yourself about what's really happening. And so my advice is to have a mentor, to go to live training. And of course, what happens is you'll have one that you really like for a while, and you want to go all the way through the bell curve of learning and mastering it before you go off, running off into training with somebody else. Master the first layer with the first trainer you work with. You can train with anybody later, but maturely don't act out against that first trainer. Like own mastery on the first level with a mature game. Go through the bell curve of frustration. After that, you can train with anybody you want. You could stay in more advanced training with that other person, but that first one, don't accidentally get frustrated. Train all the way through to mature. I remember I started performing illegally in bars when I was underage. I was worried about getting arrested. I was worrying about getting caught, and we were all kind of living in the Wild West. We were all doing a lot of crazy stuff. But I had trainers, I had teachers, but it's still like sneaking behind the barn to have your first cigarette. There's got to be some point where you're willing to take a little risk.
Yeah.
And so I hope this is a useful way to tell the story that you're going to go through steps of comfort.
Yeah.
And, hypnosis is to psych in reality is like chiropractic to medicine or osteopathy to medicine, because it follows a different track of thinking in that it believes change does not technically happen in the linguistic center of the brain. It believes it happens in the senses, sight, sound, and touch, or the movie of what's happening in the head, or the way the body is feeling. It doesn't believe it's not the same thing as persuading someone to change or even having them confess something, because it's working with the brain a very different way. And depending on, it does that even when the hypnotist doesn't fully know that they're doing that. It's cool to understand how to take apart your car, but you don't need to know how to take it apart to drive it.
It's true.
So as a hypnotist, you can learn to drive a car and you can have fun driving it. And then maybe a few years later, you want to understand how to take it apart.
Mm-hmm.
But in the beginning, you don't have to understand how to take it apart. I'm just foreshadowing that it's fun to learn that too.
So, Scott,
what are your
let me. I just want to say something real quick, if I could. You're so spot on with it. I love this idea of just throwing them into it. Just go hypnotize somebody, because it's so frustrating. And I was kind of pushed into it. I had no choice, and so I was lucky in that way.
You were in Hypno Prison. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. It was positive changes. They did the weekend workshop, and
okay, we can't go there. I have lots of history with that. Go ahead.
Do you?
Yeah, I have a lot of
I've learned more since then. But
frankly, it's not that the founders weren't okay. It's that when you make a copy of a copy of a copy, things get different. Yeah. But the big flaw there, and I have to say this because there is one.
Yeah.
You can't franchise hypnosis centers, and you can't name them all the same thing, because there's no way to do quality control. So if one center gets in trouble, all the centers get in trouble. Or if one person is stressed, all the people get stressed. So Yarnell, who was training all of us,
you're guilty. You're guilty by association,
right? And so the thing is that Yarnell, who was the trainer of all of us back then, he knew that, because he'd already run South Lake and had the problem. So the entire model was changed a certain way, but everybody wants to be scalable. Everybody does.
Sure. Yeah.
But hypnosis, as Yarnell was so fond of saying, it's not a total business. It's not a total business. It is a vocation that can be made into a business. So it's not scalable in the sense that you would think of another business. And if you take it too far, it's a house of cards, because it's only as good as the vocational mission of the people whose personalities are involved in that place. And there were some very talented people involved in the chain that you brought up, very talented. However, it was scaled really wide, And so I would point out that I don't think it's wise to set up a situation where in this business, you wouldn't name 100 hospitals the same thing. Nobody would do that.
Interesting. Yeah.
You know why that is? Do you see why that is? Am I making sense about why that is?
Yeah. I mean, you have one of them goes down, and then they're all associated with it, Yeah.
If a medical doctor does something wrong,
yeah,
they say that medical doctor is bad.
Yeah.
But if a hypnotist does something wrong, all hypnotists are bad.
Right.
And you have to face that fact, which is why our self-policing is so much more important. Because we don't have there's one of us for every 400 people like attorneys do.
Right. Yeah.
So we are lobbying for the credibility of a business and an entertainment format and a change format, and the ability to influence licensed track professions that don't have enough training in it to really do it well, to teach them to do it even better. Right? So when I have people down on my sailboat, 3 at a time, they get on my 43-foot old French yacht, and they're medical doctors or psychologists or psychiatrists or hypnotists. And we go out, we do 3-day intensive advanced work on them to teach them more about the NLP and hypnosis clinically, right? So they'll often fly me in to do their company party doing stage hypnosis, for example. But notice all of these experiences are exotic, or they're exclusive. So hypnosis depth or reaction is directly dependent on the need of the person having the hypnosis done. It could be the need for change, the need to get out of stress. It could be the deep need to enjoy themselves. It could be to get out of stress. But the trance reaction is directly dependent on their need. That's why if you do a technique and it works really great and you don't need it anymore, that audio program doesn't work the same.
Right.
So the trance reaction is directly dependent upon the need. And that need is going to be based on the 6 motivators to action: guilt, pain, loss, greed, exclusivity, or gain.
Wow.
So those leverage points are going to be the things that somebody's going through that make them need to get out of that stress and do what needs to happen, right? And that camaraderie, or the way that the pre-talk is set up, or the monologue is set up on stage, or the way the instant induction works with regard to social breaking of the pattern of what is expected. What's your favorite movie? Any of
Mine?
you? Yeah.
Oh, Lord. I think a Secondhand Lions, probably.
Secondhand Lions. And what do you love about that movie? Wasn't that shot in South Dakota?
I'm not sure where it was shot. It was just
Somewhere flat.
somewhere flat. It was just a heartwarming, kind of a story.
So when you watch it, I mean, what's one of your favorite scenes?
When Duvall beats up the young thugs.
So now you've been hypnotized through the screen. I have control of your head. You're in regression.
Right.
You're in the mood of the movie. And so notice that a
Right.
movie reference is the fastest way to get someone in a resource state that's ever existed. It's by far the best one ever. And it's the fastest way to cause induction is to put someone in the third person watching the movie that then sets you up to put them in the third person to take them into hypnosis, et cetera, which is why in great stage hypnosis, the movies, the funny, sad, scary, funny movies are the third routine in for a strategic reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, that's good.
So one of the things hypnotists often don't know is that the routines are in a specific order for a very specific set of reasons. The hot and cold test is there because as they're relaxing and getting closer to each other, they're inherently getting hotter. As you're making them fan themselves and do all the other stuff, they're getting even hotter because of the movement. Once you lay them back down, they have sweat, and the sweat is evaporating, so they're getting cooler in the first place. So there are convincers in each piece that a lot of hypnotists have not been trained what the actual convincers are, or what the various ways that you're still doing compounding suggestion in the beginning of the show. So there are so many hypnotists doing shows. Lake Hypnosis says that's my favorite part of the stage training. Yeah, it's super important to remember that a lot of people are setting up routines where they're losing subjects, they're losing participants, or the participants are starting to just emulate that they're doing it more than they should be because the routines are not sequentially set properly.
Yeah.
They've never been even taught how to do it or why they work, right? So since we're supposed to be hypnotizing people through this, the thing, I'll do one more thing with you to hypnotize people through this.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody at home can try this. So all I want you to do is remember, if you can't hear my voice or something happens to the computer or we lose feed, you can just shake this off and follow your own thinking. But what I'd like you to do is just close your eyes for a moment. Go ahead and do that now. Close your eyes. And you can all do this. Just close your eyes for a moment. And as you close your eyes, roll your eyeballs gently upward. And, the three of you that are with me can do this too. You can close your eyes and just go ahead and close your eyes and roll your eyeballs gently upward. And as you do it, closing your eyes and rolling your eyeballs gently upward, relax your eyelids as much as you can. And as you do that, relaxing your eyelids as much as you can, soon you're going to find that you can cause your eyelids to feel heavy and stuck closed. Soon, the harder you tug at the eyelids, the heavier they'll feel. You'll notice as I count from 1 to 3 that soon your eyebrows will move up and down easily and the eyelids heavy and stuck closed. The harder you tug at the eyelids, the heavier they feel. 1, feeling your eyelids stuck tight. 2, the harder you tug, the heavier they feel. 3, the harder you tug now, the harder it becomes. Give it some real effort. Your eyelids stuck tight. You can tug twice as hard. They become twice as stuck. Totally satisfy yourself with the sensation. And when you have, shake your head yes, so I know that you feel it. That's right. Notice, feel it, really feel it. And now feel your eyes open easily, open easily, open easily. And as they open easily, look around the room so that your eyes open easily. Now, as you feel that, what I want you to notice, good job, Jim. I want you to notice that as you look around easily, what's really cool about this is there are several little things in there that are super important. One, you'll notice that our friend up here, is it Brian?
Yeah.
I can't read the name. Brian? Brian always sorts by distinction, you'll notice. He has a pattern, and the pattern is powerful, which is he always has to find what he's wondering if he should disagree with first, then he agrees with the information second. So the rhythm happens in the conversation the same, and then he'll land on what he agrees with second. But he always finds a distinction and then a connection, for example, right? Well, you can watch somebody's head do that in the stage hypnosis and track that they're going to need to hear it until the agreement happens, or you're going to have to mark the agreement so they'll follow directions, right? So you notice Jim will agree first and then disagree second. If he has a distinction he wants to make, he'll make an agreement first and then disagree second, right? So you start to see how you're going to be able to keep structural rapport with people, or what you'd have to do different to get Brian to participate versus Jim to participate. Right? So you've got to realize that your sensory acuity to be tracking all of this with 10 people, 30 people, or whatever, if you're doing a high school grad party, it doesn't matter because they're gonna just do it.
Right.
Plus half of the time it's 1 a.m, and believe me, they need to do it,
Right.
but the one that's at 3 a.m, the third one you do that night, that's not harder to keep exciting, I'll tell you. But the thing is that when you fall in love with this idea that you can track why the person isn't doing it yet, instead of thinking of it as resistance, you realize they have to get the distinction out of the way to start to be following. And that they do it each time because it's the way they sort information. This particular meta program, do they sort by agreement or distinction first, or do they and the dreaded distinction with a distinction, which is very hard to deal with. It's a whole other thing. But the thing is that you notice they have a habit of how they sort out information. And this becomes incredibly powerful to know. So as we layer skills, as we layer information, this becomes magical, magical, magical. And remember, this isn't psych, this is neurolinguistics. This is the meta program's idea of how do you filter information from NLP. Like, as a person toward pleasure or away from pain more? Are they people's, places, things, tasks, systems, or information? But for a hypnotist on stage, what we need to know is, are they sorting by agreement or distinction in their head?
Scott, I've had eye lock done on me, somewhere in the dozens at least. This was the very first time that I actually felt, I think, what it's supposed to feel like, because
That's right.
I'm always having to tell myself, okay, they're locked, they're locked. This time, by God, I couldn't even freaking open them.
Let me explain why that is and why my training is different.
Yeah. Seriously,
Okay.
take my money. Take my money.
Yeah. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'll get around to it. Here's the thing I want you to understand. That eye catalepsy that I just did, which is a waking suggestibility test that's used in that exact way in the offices that I trained. And it's also the first physical suggestibility thing in the show. It's exceptionally important to understand that is not how most people do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it is much, 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 much more permissive and has a lot more checks and balances in it. So notice I told you to roll your eyeballs upward, which locked your eyes shut, first of all. Mm-hmm. I just told you to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is the reason that you're looking at something 45 degrees above you when you're watching a light or you're seeing a pendulum, is it takes the eyes to the visual cortex of the brain, so they stop talking to themselves as much. So their eyes are up at the visual accessing point, and it fatigues the lids more, which helps the eye closure. But if it's here, it's not going to do that. It's getting them up here where they're getting more visual and more monoideistic. It's got to be at a specific place.
Yeah.
But instead of having you stare at something because we don't have that time, I just told you to do it. Right?
Yeah.
Which then the eyelids don't open easily for 90% of the population unless you look forward. So they're not just locked because of the suggestion, they're locked because they're physically locked until you look forward. So there are two things going on. Secondly, I told you your eyebrows move easily and your eyelids are heavy and stuck tight. You can't find meaning unless you have something to compare it to. So I gave you the contrast between the fact that you could move the muscles of your forehead and the lids were stuck. Without that contrast, you can't feel it. So you think you're supposed to just comply and fake it. There's a giant difference between proving the suggestion to somebody or them placating you and wondering if they're faking.
Yeah.
If you're taking thousands and thousands of people through a clinic or you're doing stage hypnosis, I can't tell you how many hundreds of times at seminars I've had highly trained people say, I didn't know this was supposed to really work. Some very famous people have said that to me. And So think about this idea. Every physical suggestion is a formal proof. And the minute they don't know it actually worked, it works like Gestalt. If you have a belief chain in hypnosis, like a chain of a necklace, and you're putting beads on this necklace, the minute they don't really believe one of the things you're doing, or they wonder if they're doing it, think the necklace breaks and all the beads fall off of it. And then they just think they're complying with you. Not only is that bad in dating, it's bad in hypnosis. Okay, so like the minute that breaks, okay, and so you have to pace the fact that it actually either they were more emotionally suggestible, as John Kappas used to like to talk about, or physical suggestible. And you need to have the emotional proof happen in the beginning of the show and the physical proof. So the emotional proof is in like the funny, sad, scary, funny, where they're emotionally responding to the suggestions for real. The physical proof is the fact that my eyelids are getting heavy. I am following the breathing. I am complying. And as they're doing all of this, the double bind suggestions have to feel real. The harder you try, the harder it becomes. Those double bind suggestions must actually be legitimate. And those emotional and physical suggestions being real in the beginning start the fractionalization process for the entire show. And there are so many people that have no clue, but they're so charming. They're so good looking, charming, entertaining, but they have no clue. And charm goes a long way. Charm goes a long way. So, I hope that you kind of grasp the fact, like John Kappas, when he was alive, was so cool, and he allowed us to do so much all throughout the industry because he's the first person that got a separate SEC code for hypnosis as a separate profession. Mm-hmm. And things change over the years, but John was very amazing, when he was alive, married to Florence Henderson. And I don't know anybody personally out there anymore, but I did know John, and I actually was a student of the AIH program that has his curriculum at AIH from that particular textbook, and AIH no longer exists anymore. But this is also something I would recommend for every stage hypnotist that I will be teaching. This line from Krasner, Al Krasner: "Close your eyes. This is very similar to what hypnosis feels like. You should not expect to black out or go unconscious. But you will follow each suggestion. That's right. Go ahead and open your eyes." Well, in the pre-talk, in the onstage pre-talk, after they're seated in the chairs, that will save you so many people thinking that they're doing it wrong and trying to walk off. It's a mind-blowing helper.
Damn.
And, it's Krasner's big addition to hypnosis is that one line. He's done tons of cool things. I mean, I remember when he was dueling with my dad, I was teaching a stage hypnosis training in Vegas, and Krasner was a student there after I had been at AIH. And his girlfriend thought my dad, who's now passed on also, was attractive. So Krasner walked up to him and said, "Pistols or swords, Jim? Pistols or swords?" And Krasner was so charming that he didn't need technique. He'd have you laughing or crying at talking to you, and he almost didn't need technique. And so that's also Ormond McGill.
So I'll jump in for kind of an earlier question. One of these things I've been sitting on is you talked about getting a mentor, and I know that Jim and I kind of look at Jim as kind of a mentor figure, and he and I have bounced ideas back and forth. We've been on stage together. We generally work really, really well. Mm-hmm. But with kind of advice to Becca, what are your thoughts on, or anybody, what are your thoughts on people getting out and doing some street hypnosis, where it's like you give them some fundamentals, some basics, you're there to kind of supervise and let them kind of get those reps and some batting practice?
I'm a huge I don't think street hypnosis is like close-up magic, and I think that street hypnosis is not that entertaining, and has a lot of liability, and with the right sensory acuity and the right awareness of who does and does not want that to happen, that's one thing. But you see, a lot of people don't understand the cleanup of suggestions. Like, if you're doing hand catalepsy and somebody doesn't hear the end of when you're mentioning that the suggestion's canceled. Well, you'll get a phone call after you're 200 miles down the road with somebody saying, I can't put down the water glass. I can't put down the water glass, And in street hypnosis, you have very little control of the environment and whether or not people hear the beginning and the middle of it and end of what you're saying. And it is absolutely true that you can get away with it a lot. But street hypnosis is actually the sensory acuity, the awareness that you need to have of how that person is taking what you say needs to be very, very high. Because there are so many ways that you can be the uninvited guest in that party. There are so many ways it can be a little screwy. And I would say, if you're in the right environment with the right people, maybe spring break in a resort spot or something, there's places where it would be much easier to get people to participate and they'd be very happy to do it. But what people do is they get excited about doing street hypnosis. I would say you want to be pretty advanced at knowing who to do it for and who not to do it for. You need to be very, very advanced at knowing when to not do it. Which groups is it okay to approach? Which groups is it not okay to approach? Where are you invading on something? Who is more likely to resent it later? Think about this. 10% of the population to 12% of the population has borderline personality, according to most statistics. Well, if you do a hypnosis induction on a borderline who's acting like they love it, you understand that the whole thing is going to accelerate with transference, and then they're going to flip on whether they loved it or hated it. So the flipping behavior of a borderline, for example, the liability of wandering up to a random borderline who didn't directly volunteer exactly, or who decides to flip when they said they're really into it and love it, but then they flip, where there's no real mob mentality of the room or the other people on stage being hypnotized, that means a lot. There's a lot of ways that can go sideways. But I probably did 200 shows before I ever saw anyone have like ticking or issues. And I just thought it was fictional. I thought that didn't even exist. I thought it was fake. I thought the books were wrong. I thought my trainers were wrong. But then I saw 10 people in a row have the problem. So I think it's better to book rooms when you start with 100 people in them. I think you should book your biggest shows when you start. I think you should charge at least $1,000 right out of the gate. I think you should book rooms with 100 people in them where the 10 people that come up on stage are the people that really want to be there. I think that you should go from that with experience to street hypnosis or small groups. I don't think you should go from small groups to big groups. I think you should go from big groups to small groups. And I think that there's some really fun stuff in the gregariousness and walking up. But if you know anybody that's making a living at street hypnosis, I haven't met that person.
It's true. Yeah.
Well, that's, I guess, kind of the polar opposite of how I learned, and I find it interesting because and just sharing my experience was, Jim took me out and it was like, okay, here's some of the safeties and the basics. We trained with another very, very well known hypnotist, and the emphasis was safety, and it was like, okay, here are like the 4 things that I want you to do today. If you do nothing else and you do these things safely, awesome. And then, as far as like the suggestions and stuff, it was like I was just throwing stuff against the wall to see, like, all right, will this work? My car keys are telling dirty jokes to my sunglasses, and you obviously keep it clean. But those little successes were like, okay, cool. Well, now I want to do a stage show with Jim.
There may be more than one way to build a house, and that's perfectly true.
And then kind of on that, it wasn't that we were approaching people. We set up a sandwich board. We had the video cameras and stuff out, and then people would crowd around.
Right.
They would make their inquiry, and it was like, well, do you want to give it a go? we would answer their questions, and it was like, the offer is here to experience it. There's no charge for anything. And
Where
then you
were
have
you?
a will.
Where were you?
We were in downtown Seattle, Pike
Mhm.
Place, just on the backside of Pike Place Market.
Did
Under
it
the
require
viaduct.
a permit?
No permits?
Mhm. So keep in mind, a lot of places you need a permit to do that.
Yeah, the
And
busking permit.
yeah, and can be very serious to get. But let's assume that it's a place that you can do that, first of all, legally. But let's say that what if you could have got $1,000 the first time you walked on stage to do it?
To be quite honest with you, with having just done, half a days of training. I mean, it was a very, very small group, so very close to one-on-one, or it wasn't like you're in this big auditorium.
Oh,
or
I'm
anything.
sorry. I'd have just made you. I don't think you're quite understanding. I wouldn't have given you a choice. So, like, here's the thing. The whole point of it is that the number.
Oh,
one of the biggest,
I would have had somebody very, very pissed off that they gave me $1,000 for me to be like, what the hell I'm doing
not
up
if
here.
you went not if you went to my training, you wouldn't. So one of the things I want you to think about is this. You're talking about building up your confidence step by step, and that's great. And I'm glad that worked for you.
Mhm.
But it would have worked really amazing if somebody paid you $1,000 and you were driving home and they were ecstatic and they did a video for you and they were blown away and they did a testimonial video for you. That would have also blown you away very much. And what I'm saying is that there may be more than one way to get there.
Sure. And that's why I asked.
Yeah. But I think that the problem with the busking is if you're in an environment where that's going on anyway, it would look very natural and wonderful and terrific and it would work great. But in a lot of places, it's regulated or very difficult to do. So my interest is teaching people how to get high paid shows right away and to put them in a position where they have to break the ice right away. And I understand what you're saying. So I guess it's like people want to talk about being fast in hypnosis, which is a lot like saying, I don't last long in sex. So the thing is, there's no comedy without tension and tragedy and mystery. And the reason that a hypnosis show is so funny and becomes so funny is the seriousness and contrast between the way the monologue works and the way the routines work with the people being the star later. And so there's a contrast. It's like it goes from one plot to another plot, where it just becomes such a tension release when that induction is over and all that stuff is over, that the humor just becomes mind-blowingly funny because of the tension of the beginning. And it takes a certain, what I was doing a levitation that I do about mesmer, and I was doing it very bad. But I was doing this thing where the audience, we were doing a catalepsy thing, and we're going to float this girl. Like we're going to do this magnetic thing that goes in the hypnosis show. And I've now got this illusion going really great. But man, did it suck. And I was being consulted by Jeff McBride, and he was helping me. And he pointed out that whenever there was a little problem, I'd crack a joke. I would crack a joke. And I would use, and he said, not all humor is good. And this is a serious routine where I'm playing mesmer and I'm making the audience use magnetism to cause this to happen. And everyone's standing up and we're doing this whole thing. And I'm cracking a joke in the middle of the mystery plot like an idiot. I'm breaking character because of my own tension about technical problems, and I'm wrecking the show. And I had to learn to stay in character of what I was really doing. Well, the beginning of a hypnosis show or the beginning of an induction is very similar in the sense that it contrasts intensity with humor later. And this contrast makes the humor such a tension release, such a huge, fun, powerful thing that is funnier than going to any stand-up comedian. And by the end of the show, they're laughing mind-blowingly. That's also why you do the funny, sad, scary, funny thing, and you do funny at the end, is because you're embedding the command as this is going to be the funniest thing you've ever seen. The harder you try to stop laughing, the louder you're going to laugh, and the audience stays in that suggestion for the rest of the show.
That's also kind of like when you go up to your kids and they're all pissed off at the world, and you're like, especially like little elementary school kids, you're like, don't smile, don't smile, and they're fighting it as hard as can be, and then they finally crack, and you're like, Doc, gotcha.
Yes. I don't know. I don't know if we'll have the whole industry go great right now, or if it'll take a few months or years. But at some point, everybody's going to want to keep the wonderful legacy that exists. You know?
And that's something I hope we can get back to.
Yeah, I mean, we hear these stories about stadiums being sold out in the 80s and 90s and stuff. And I mean, just huge shows that just don't seem to be happening anymore.
Well, they're easy to make happen when I'm four-walling. We sell out everything that we do down here whenever I do it, you know, whether it's that or it's illusion shows or anything. Like the easiest thing to sell online is events. I consult for a lot of online marketing in all kinds of businesses. And, you know, the easiest thing to sell is an event.
Wow.
None of the social media companies, you know, blackball it. You don't get stuck in any weird place. It's easy to put on the various event sites. There's nothing easier to sell than events. Four-walling events is actually one of the easiest things to market online.
Wow.
And I'm a huge advocate of four-walling, of booking your own thing and producing your own shows. Huge advocate. You know, and that's one of the reasons why for a time I owned my own dinner theater, you know, and we did murder mysteries, the stage hypnosis show, illusion shows, had Don Wayne, the guy who used to consult for Copperfield, winning all those Emmys. He came in and consulted for the illusion show, as did the Pendragons.
So just real quick, I want to make sure I heard you correctly, that you're saying that it's easy to book events kind of regardless of what it is, as far as
yes,
some type
that
of
is what I'm saying.
Okay. Now I just want to make sure I'm tracking.
Yes, events sell easily online if you know how to localize them correctly. The big mistake hypnotists make, all of them, clinical trainers or entertainers, is they don't local target their marketing. So they blend into thousands of people all over the country, which is a ridiculous way to market. You know,
could you give a couple of examples or kind of some context?
They're not choosing like the geographical area where their ads are going to run correctly on Facebook or in Google display or in paid search or whatever they're doing. They're not realizing that they're still needing to, they're too excited about getting digital clients. And so they're spreading the peanut butter so thin on the toast that they don't actually have the right kind of reach. And it's a fool's errand to not pick the geography of how you're doing web marketing. And yet many people don't see that. They haven't gone through the training to understand the foolishness of that.
You know, and I've caught myself in that, and it really is about discipline, because, you know, it's like, I think all of marketing is discipline, you know, disciplined to go after your target market and not go, oh, I want everybody, you know, like you're saying, I want this, I can focus on this local area, but no, I want everybody in the world to come to my show, my training and everything. So for me, it's discipline. And I totally get what you're saying there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You've got 20% of the people that are going to be zealots for you, and 60% that are going to be lukewarm, and 20% that are going to hate your guts.
Yeah.
And the question is, are you going to target the top 20% correctly? Or are you going to aim at the people that you want in that top 20%? Because that's where all of your future is. That's where all of your money is. That's where your whole future life is.
So when you're talking about marketing, are you looking at what, like geographically, like where the audience that you, like, say you book a venue and you're like, hey, you know what? I want to market to, you know, kind of a nicer part of town because it's more of an upscale venue versus, hey, I got kind of a hole in the wall, you know, dive bar that I'm playing at. And then also, you know, what are tickets going to be charging? Okay. Are there people that are likely to be able to afford them? Versus,
if you're marketing a hypnosis clinic, you know, one of the things
about a clinic or a show.
Well, either way, what I want you to think about is, it's an example, you know, the rich get surgery, right? So if they want to look different, they get surgery. Okay. So what we teach is awesome, and it has extremely high results. But the thing, you know, but the point is that you've got to advertise to the people who want to come to your event, right? So these people are going to be, you know, you look at, they're going to be middle class and up, usually. But like when you're doing seminars where you're really helping people, like advertising a seminar event, then it's whoever has the pain of the problem that needs to solve it. So the target niche would be whatever type of person needs to be there. Smokers that are going to smoke heavily are going to be in a certain kind of working class demographic more than they're going to be in a higher demographic. I got a lot more smokers advertising in the Midwest than when I was in Denver, for example. And one side of Denver was one way and the other side of Denver was another way. So whatever you're doing, wherever you're putting the show, the motif of the venue is how I would pick where I would advertise.
So for like a stop smoking clinic, you might advertise at a hospital or a medical center where people have kind of some high stress, and then even
I'd
like
probably in stop smoking, I'd probably send letters to a bunch of pulmonologists, and then I'd also advertise at the plants in the area. I'd send communications to the plants, but the thing is that I wouldn't do so much digital marketing for smoking. And I don't, weight loss, social media and search engines hate weight loss. That's why the shows are so much easier to market online than the services for clinical hypnosis. There's so much easier to advertise a stage hypnosis show than it is the other stuff.
Now with the weight loss, is it more difficult because you've got more of your cosmetic facilities that are like, hey, you know what, we want the people that are doing the cold skull.
It's because Google and Facebook believe it's body shaming, and they also don't let them do anything either. And it's the political correct thing. It's not. It's really amazingly weird. But the thing is that what I would suggest is that when you're advertising a stage hypnosis show, you'd go for the town, the night. And you wouldn't have to worry so much about the class of people. The town, the night. And, we do a lot of stuff by the villages, for example, just outside of the villages down here. And it's always packed, and
now, when you say the villages, is that like a college term?
It's a giant area for people 55 plus and older. That's like its own tiny little state in the state of Florida of little townships that are all retirement oriented communities. And it's an easy place people love entertainment. They have the money to burn. But I guess what I'm saying is, don't be afraid to play with it, but target where you are going to be doing what you're doing. One step at a time. Work from a target outward, one step at a time with your digital marketing. So you're geographically targeting where it's going, and your money is going to penetrate that area. And it's not you having peanut butter on the toast. There's someone right now doing hypnosis training consulting where they're teaching trainers to market on Facebook, and they're wrecking all their marketing, whether they know it or not, because hundreds of people are doing the exact same thing, and they're not doing it geographically. And I'm watching it happen, and I'm like, who taught them to do this? Because they don't know.
What platforms do you find are the most successful digitally?
Well, LinkedIn is great if you know how to use it business to business, but Facebook is really the one that's the most. Facebook and Instagram are king.
Okay.
As far as the age range of these, 40-year-old to 55-year-old people that come to shows, if I was going to do really young people, I might consider, TikTok or whatever. But I make the most. There's still more people on Facebook that are reacting to the kind of stuff we do. And if I'm doing an event, I'm probably going to be using Facebook.
Cool. Scott, so I got to tell you, I got a message. Somebody, I'm not going to say who it was, but they messaged me and they said, "GD, this guy is a genius."
Well, I have a cheat sheet under the computer.
I tend to agree. I mean, you've definitely shared stuff that I've never heard before. There's wow, amazing stuff here. We're gonna do a quick product spotlight, and then we're gonna come back and play friend or frenemy, and then you can do a short hypnosis session if you'd like. And Shawn, will you send everybody away for a minute? Okay. Hey everybody, you know what time it is. It's time to pay the bills. That's right. So if you would now look, if you buy something with a link that's in the description or something, I'm going to make some money on it. Trust me, it's not enough to retire. So you got to buy a lot of them. But I would recommend this one because this is and I got the 2-pack here. It's the 4-in-1. Now this is only if you're an Apple user. If you're one of those Android users like the Captain, don't bother. So this is, and I forgot to hit the right button here. Hold on. There we are. Okay. So this right here is the 4-in-1 watch iPhone charger for travel. It's a multi-charging cable for iPhone products. So I know I've talked about chargers many times. I love chargers, but this one finally, so number one, I can plug this into my computer, right? This is the USB or to a block. It's got a regular, the old style, the lightning cable for my AirPods. It's got the USB-C for my new iPhone 15, new-ish, right there. And it's also got, so if you got one of those old things now, the old USB Mini, I believe it's called, you can use that as well. And then the game changer for me was Apple Watch right there. So I've got one in my backpack, one in my car, and thank God, because I actually needed to use it this weekend because I was traveling up to Canada. I was able to charge all my devices, no problem. So finally, something for us Apple users. We can cover, again, we can cover all the bases right there. Grab it, grab the 2-pack, maybe grab a couple. I'm probably going to grab a couple more because I like to have them everywhere so I'm never out of power. Thanks for watching that. All right, everyone come back. All right, heroes, who would like to do the honor of friend or frenemy? Okay. Scott McFall. All right, Brian.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait. And also, hey, if you're watching right now, be sure and cast your vote. Is he a friend or a frenemy?
I think we should give it a quick, we're going to keep a little bit of suspense because Scott kind of alluded to that earlier, that you just kind of, some plot twists and everything like that. So we'll give it a minute for people to cast their votes. Is Scott a friend? Yeah. Place your bets. Is Scott a friend or a frenemy? And then if you're watching us on TikTok, the captain will relay your votes. But
already have Casey says friend.
Okay.
And by the way, I have not one, I have 2 iPhones here, Jim.
Whoa. Oh, you have iPhones now? I thought you were Android.
No, why would I do that?
Oh, Shawn.
Because we're sane.
I'm so sorry. So, Brian, please leave the show. You're the only Android user here. Unless, I feel attacked. Perhaps, I can't imagine Scott using an Android, but
I really don't.
Oh, Beck. All right, well, we're going to have a 2 question. Friend.
There he is.
Oh, we lost it.
You have an iPhone or Android?
Yeah. No, I'm an iPhone user. I don't have the kind of lack of laziness it takes to bother to have an Android.
Brian, we love you. We still love you. Okay. You'll get a job someday and get an iPhone. It's all right.
Hey, so you got,
you know how I can tell you guys all have iPhones? Is because you guys have pulled your effing hair out trying to figure out the Jesus things.
Yes, well, I understand. I remember when I used to feel like that.
I actually used to have an Android, and then my dad got a job. So remember that one?
Oh man.
Okay.
Of course, my iPhone, I don't have to, or my Android, I don't have to treat it like a Fabergé egg and insure it accordingly. But
it's disposable.
Oh, wait, Becca says, see, Android sucks. Hey, Becca, how's that Hypnosis Hero app that you downloaded on your iPhone? Oh, wait, you didn't. None of you did.
Oh, yeah, I got to get back on that. Cindy loves her Android. That's okay.
See?
Hypnosis will help. All right. So we've got all the votes in.
So Scott.
Oh, I'm still here. Yes.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you, Jim.
As far as you know, I will. Yes.
All right.
So
true or false? Pineapple is acceptable on pizza.
Oh, this is tough.
Shouldn't be tough, Scott. Shouldn't be tough.
Well, it all depends. There's a
No,
reason-
no, no. It depends. That's not an adult diaper commercial.
Man, you got to stay out of
The
stand.
three of you guys might be old enough for it, but
Yes. No, I'm going to say does not belong on pizza.
Oh, yeah.
boom!
All right,
We got it. We got a friend.
We've got a friend, but in the interest of, completing the thought, what was the depends? Just so we can clarify that.
Well, later on.
Wait. Scott's comments are sponsored by AARP.
Wait, on the 24th of January, when we are in Las Vegas,
Yeah.
I will tell you the one circumstance that I
Oh.
might change my mind.
Oh, wow. Brought
And
to you.
Yes. However, it's a conversation we're not going to have on camera.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
All right.
Thank you for preserving my TikTok account.
He says Vegas, we're gonna reveal something, and I'm like, oh God. I don't know if I
you don't want to miss
for
it.
that.
You need to get you need to get a plane ticket. Come over to the U.S.
Yeah.
Pretty funny comment. Brian was trying to say there that the Scott's comments were sponsored by AARP.
Thanks. Yeah.
I figured
But
depends
I have
at
no
all.
defense. I have no defense. It's a fact.
Hey, you get good discounts at Denny's, Brian. Huh.
Scott, with you saying I have no defense, you're starting to sound like Diddy.
So yeah. Well, yeah. I'd like to get along.
Not political, current events.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So
Oh God, he's so hosed.
So should we do this hypnosis thing?
Yeah. So, Shawn, please run the disclaimer. Hey, everybody, if you're watching right now, if you're driving a car, moving around,
Turn us
chopping
off.
wood, something like that, stop doing it, sit down, lie down, or just press pause, come back and watch this later because we're going to do live hypnosis right now through the screen.
You get yourself away from anything that can hurt you. Because if you fall and you're within range of like your coffee table or something like that, we will not know anything that happened. So preferably lying back, put your feet up, get relaxed. All right, Scott, send it.
So today, if you do want to do this hypnosis thing for just a moment, go ahead and close your eyes. Roll your eyeballs gently upward. And just take a deep breath in. And let it out slowly. That's right. Take another deep breath in. And as you let it out this time, if you've been hypnotized before, just go twice as relaxed and twice as inside as you were before, further inside and more relaxed. Take another deep breath in. And as you let it out this time, with your eyes comfortably closed, rolling the eyeballs upward, begin to notice the eyelids feeling heavy and stuck closed. The harder you tug, the heavier they feel. Notice the eyebrows move up and down easily and the eyelids heavy and stuck closed. Satisfy yourself with that sensation. And as you do, that's right. I don't know when you notice that you're relaxing in your right hand or your left. I don't know if you notice the left leg letting go or the right. I'm not sure if you relax 1,000 times right now or in a couple of minutes. I wonder when you notice that you wonder curiously about going back to the time of your biggest hassle and just deciding that you can float above it, feeling nothing, and see it turn black and white and boring in your mind. And realize that you can forgive everyone as though the cord between your abdomen and theirs, that white cord of power or energy, you just cut it and see your end go into you and their end go into them. And you keep only the positive learnings that will help you in the future and let go of the rest of it. Maybe every night when you go to sleep, you cut the cord with everyone. You let your end go into you and their end go into them. You let go and you forgive. But more importantly, you see yourself standing in front of you, the you from the past. And maybe every night when you go to bed, you cut the cord between you and the you of the past. keeping only the positive learnings that will help you in the future. I don't know when you get good at this, like you can float above yourself like a soul and think of other people's souls, or whatever way that you look at that, whatever way you feel about it. So you find yourself every day looking at everything like it's a learning experience. You feel the weight of your body pressing down right now. And you notice your eyelids heavy and stuck closed. And you begin to discover the insight of that everything is about learning and forgiving and having fresh attachments every day. And that facing change is really everything. So being curious about learning, shifting, changing, that's right. Soon you'll notice the eyelids still heavy and stuck closed. And when you've decided to fantasize about yourself, forgiving, letting loose, letting go, and being ready to learn or chase new ways of doing everything each day, only then your eyes open easily. You look around, and as your eyes open, that's right, you just keep that learning. Maybe takes you a couple of moments, and as your eyes open, that's right. You'll notice that if your eyes are open and everything's good, please type in the comments that your eyes are open now. And if you need a little help opening your eyes, decide that you can decide in steps over the next few days that you feel that you agree with everything, and let your eyes pop open, pop open. And as you do that, there's a powerful, cool thing that we're using there called ideomotor response tied to agreement or healing or the suggestion. So we're using the ideomotor response of the eyes opening as the physical sign of agreement. That's right. That's right. So as we do that, there's a very powerful thing that we're doing there, which is the body, the mind-body connection works better than the language center of the brain. So the eyes opening is a different physical agreement than just saying yes or moving a finger as a yes signal or anything like that. So it's like letting their arm fall or let go of arm catalepsy as they agree, or letting the eyes open as the agreement happens, is a very important and powerful ability to use the brain and the body outside of the linguistics part of the brain or outside of the intellect side of the brain. So we're using the genius and adding resources part of the brain, not the intellect side or game of the brain. So there's incredible power in using that, is there not? That's right. So there's a lot to using physical signaling or even what happens in their body as they feel things, far more than what do they say. So I sincerely hope that's useful for someone watching.
Yeah, that was great. Fantastic. Thanks everybody for watching. Scott, before we go, what can you just tell us the link to your what's the website for your conference coming up this weekend, right?
Yeah, that would be masterhypnotistsociety.com.
Masterhypnotistsociety.com. Great.
And that would be for the training in San Diego. Yep.
San Diego. Yeah. Wow, I can't think of too many better places in San Diego to go. So
cool.
Nice.
It's fun hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, it's fun hanging out with you too. Blew my mind, really. I mean, we've had a lot of really smart people on here, a lot of people with a lot of training and education and knowledge. And this, sincerely, Scott, blew my mind. I got all kinds of notes here.
Well, you're all awesome. It was great to hang out with you.
Yeah, definitely a lot of good information and points to ponder.
Yeah.
I'll mention that Lake Hypnosis on the comments mentioned Eventbrite as one of the things that people are using to do four-walling. Eventbrite is pretty, and there's a bunch of them, but it's one of them that's pretty good.
Awesome. Scott McFall, thank you so much. Come see Scott McFall. Either go down to San Diego this weekend or come out to the Performing Hypnosis Summit in January. PerformingHypnosisSummit.com. Go learn from Scott and other brilliant hypnotists like him.